there was no need to introduce the other one.
Alright, so it was basically just kind of like a leftover from the previous patches. Well,
Yeah,
it being there in their public test
something
server.
like that.
Another question is, will the Merkava get a nerf?
I'm sorry, again?
The Merkava, the tier 7 Israeli tank, will it get nerfed?
Actually, I don't think so. At least I don't know of any plans to nerf it. There has been feedback that it's quite strong, maybe even too strong, and it's okay. I can mark it down and ask about its characteristics. But at this moment, I don't think we're going to be nerfing it.
Yeah.
Will its speed be increased?
Sorry?
Will they increase its speed?
I don't think that they will be buffing it either.
Heat shells are almost worthless. Are they going to do something about that? And why are heat shells in the lower tier higher pinned than the Sabos?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the universal answer to such questions is balance, but whether this is intentional or whether this is some sort of leftover from what Obsidian left, I can't really tell. I would have to ask the developers. There's one thing that's for sure is that there are still things with the numbers, with penetrations, performances with different types of shells that we're not happy with. Hence the 0.20 updates. And well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, in theory, it's not that unrealistic for heat on lower tiers for heat rounds to perform actually better than kinetic rounds. Obviously, that's probably not the best way to approach it from the game perspective, but it's sort of realistic. So it's something that I will mark down and look into.
Yeah. So when talking about the Merkava only, this is probably a question that people will ask at some point. But how are tanks balanced? How do things get buffed and nerfed? Like, what kind of statistic gets used?
Oh, actually, yeah, that's a very good question. So I had this discussion with the lead developer about two days ago before the weekend. And basically, what they are doing is not that different from what Obsidian was doing or what Obsidian was planning. They have a full set of telemetry down to like really small details. Something like, for example, the basics. The basic is the curve that correlates the vehicle win rate with the player that's playing at win rate. So like something like that's available for World of Tanks on WOT news. You know, those famous curves. Then there are sorry, plenty of other characteristics that the developers are using. I'll I'll look it up if I can in the chat. But basically, they are using time to kill, survivability, contribution to the team, and all the other important meta stuff. I mean, I won't pretend I'm an expert on this kind of topic, but yeah, they're not definitely not using just win rate or anything.
That's good because a lot of people are thinking that that's the only way.
No, yeah, that's. I mean, we're kind of guilty of that a bit because I mean, win rate is
Wow.
has one advantage, and that is that it's super easy to explain. I mean, here's
Yeah.
your number, and it shows tank is OP, tank is not OP. Generally speaking, anything below 48% of win rate has some sort of problem,
32
but it
damage to the front. Wow.
doesn't tell you what kind of problem. You know, that's something you need to do a full analysis for, and everything above 52-53% is potentially OP. But of course, there are tanks that have, let's say, win rate within these limits, but are still OP in very skilled hands because they have a very steep player experience to vehicle performance
Ow.
curve, and well,
Ow.
those are of course targeted as well. So sometimes we are rebalancing tanks that are actually even within those, let's say, norm win rate parameters. One of the examples would probably be the Armata,
Mhm.
which on paper, on EU especially, it has quite good win rate. It's like over 51%. On Russian on the server, the win rate for Armata is lower. I think it's around maybe even under 50%, or 50% around that number.
So,
And yeah.
Frank, just to
Mhm.
interject, but would that simply just be for you guys? You would just say, oh, the reason why it's got a low percent on RU is because they play it differently.
No.
Really?
The reason why it has low percent on RU is that because there are many more of them.
Mhm.
Basically, everyone. It's the most played tier 10 tank because it's Russian, and everyone is just playing it. Here, it's higher because the people that are playing it are, let's say, a bit more skilled. I'm not saying that every skilled player plays with Armata. That's of course a nonsense. But yeah, the skill level for Armata is overall higher on EU.
Yeah, that makes sense considering it's not like a national vehicle over here in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. We don't have anything that's super special, and because it's a Russian thing, like the Russians like to play Russian tanks, and the Armata that's like the holy grail of Russian tank engineering and so on. So they like to play it. But on EU and on NA, we don't have that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not like the Germans just love to play the EU parts. Not really.
Hey, wake up.
A question from Baboon. Baboon, couldn't you ask questions? It's a will you guys fix autocannons? Presumably that's the whole thing with autocannons, like having a monstrous DPM, but they can't use it because they have bad penetration and bad damage. So I guess that
Fix
means
what? Sorry.
autocannons. I guess that's a question. Are
Uh,
you guys going to change the autocannons to be more effective?
yeah, that's a good question. The thing is, let me put it like this: autocannon vehicles
Hagen.
on paper, they don't perform badly. They have pretty good stats actually, or well, not the good stats. They don't, but they don't suck. So the question is whether
Hello.
the, let's say, perceived underperformance of autocannons is really the fault of the autocannons, or if it's fault of something else. There are in 0.20. I don't think there are any changes like that, but I know that the developers are actually looking into it. So
Oh
in
god.
result, I don't have a definitive answer for that. It's something that I would have to ask for details. But well, you might have noticed that the 0.20 didn't go super well the launch on the Russian server, so developers are kind of having their hands full right now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Right now, all the ABs are missile throwers.
Yeah, well, that was actually intended. I mean, if you remember back when Obsidian Entertainment was still in charge of development, or specifically Felix Nakumba, um, they actually really wanted to do this. They wanted to turn the AFVs into pure missile boats. That's why every vehicle in the games, except for the lower ones, if it had autocannon, it received a missile launcher because that was supposed to be its primary weapon. With the change in the development team, they sort of, let's say, not retracted, but they did want to make this rule as emphasized, and they wanted basically to make autocannons fun again. So that's why they introduced in 0.19 the unlimited autocannon ammunition mechanism and other things, or unlimited clips, so to say. And yeah, so it was sort of a move back to the, let's say, older armored warfare, where the autocannons are or were really powerful. that was like in 0.18. I mean, the main issue was that then autocannon vehicle like a diesel could like go around the tank, shoot it in the back, empty 2 clips, and destroy the tank, and the tank could do nothing. And that was not the intended gameplay either, because that wasn't really fun for the tank or for anyone on the receiving end of
Yeah,
the autocannon.
I can imagine. A suggestion: wouldn't it be better if we have like the warrior and fox had like they had 6 shots each with 150 damage, so they would do
Hmm.
like about the damage of 2 MBT shells in about 5 seconds or so. I feel like autocannons simply having like, well, like a 30 millimeter, like most IFE autocannons today have like a high burst and a low burst in terms of rounds per minute. Wouldn't it be better if we had like our autocannons having low burst but with higher damage now, so they can be effective, but they don't have the insane damage per minute they have now and last patch, in which they could just destroy people in
Yeah, that was
10
actually
seconds or so.
yeah. I hear what you're saying. That was actually the original intent for Balance 2.0. Um, from what I know, it was tested and it didn't work very well. I mean, it could be even seen. I suppose that the European players didn't get to access all that much, but because there were no very early 0.19 PTS on EU, but on the Russian server, the few players that saw it could see that it didn't do super well because the autocannons felt underpowered. Basically, what happened was, in order to use the autocannon properly, what you had to do, or what you did was, you had to expose your vehicle, for example, by riding out, and let's say that you got behind the enemy MBT or to its sides, and you emptied the 5 round clip, and now you were stuck reloading, and you were exposed. You were standing next to an MBT, which often recovered and killed you. And it didn't make for a very good gameplay, which is why it was changed to, let's say, higher burst,
Mm-hmm.
and at the expense of course, damage per shot.
Yeah.
Like the oh, what tank is that? The Bradley. It, its autocannon fires so slow, and I've seen them in action, and they pump out a lot faster rounds.
Yeah, I mean, when you take the BMPT, the Terminator, their cannons can fire twice as fast
Yeah,
because they have
it's
a
it's 600 rounds per
variable
minute, I
rate of
believe.
fire. So basically, what this is just balance. Balance 2.0, or not balance 2.0, but autocannon balance counts on rate of fire as the balance parameter.
Yeah, because I mean, people are now saying that this is strictly an MBT type game.
Yeah, Armored Warfare has been referred to as a Wombat world of MBTs, because of how powerful MBTs are now, and it feels like the game is centered around MBTs now rather than being in all classes or at least equal in a way.
Yeah, well, actually, yes and no. In many situations, especially with 0.19, the LTs are even more powerful than NDTs. That's not intended, because there was a bug where the LTs, or some of the LTs, have really powerful armor.
Yeah,
So that's one thing. The other thing is the FVs with guided missiles. Those are actually pretty good too. And the things that are not good are pure scout AFVs that have autocannons like VBL and so on. and especially Thunderstars are lackluster. I mean, they in 0.19 they kind of like lost their niche because with they were supposed to be originally high DPM and good camo vehicles, but the problem is that the light tanks also received high camouflage in Balance 2.0, and they basically took over their niche. So whatever tank destroyer does in 0.19, a light tank usually does better. So that's why in 0.20 a whole bunch of them are receiving autocannons, or not autocannons but autoloaders. Sorry,
Hmm.
um, to give them that extra oomph, that extra short burst damage, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, they will definitely have higher DPM and the ability to do a lot of damage over a short period of time,
Yeah.
plus some sort of stealthy buff. So they're not that obvious.
Presumably, what a lot of people are saying is that 2.0 will be like the final thing for Armored Warfare. That this is like how the game will be here forever. What do you say about that?
Well, I mean, there is no such thing as forever in a MMO world. I mean, MMOs are generally evolving all the time. I mean, when you take, for example, World of Warcraft, it's a completely different game than it was 5 or even 10 years ago, or when I don't actually remember how long it was since it launched, but it has been a very long time, and the game evolved constantly and changed a lot, and that's how it is in every MMO. I mean, so obviously the answer is no. There will be further changes. There will be further mechanisms. Mm, we're planning to introduce even new like in-game mechanisms, vehicle mechanisms like, for example, hydraulic suspension and other such stuff. It doesn't have a super high priority right now, so don't expect it like tomorrow. But it's something that's definitely still on the table, and those things they will change the gameplay, and of course there will be new modes and so on. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, this is absolutely not the final form.
This is not my final form.
Exactly.
So I have a bunch of questions. Jesus Christ. Um, is anything being done to the armor model in game? There's been reports such as bugged armor models, MBTs having like ridiculous amounts of side armor.
Yeah, absolutely. That's let me put it like this: model quality, and that counts for both visual side and armor side, or collision model side and realistic side. Was one of the, or maybe Steven still is,
Wow.
depends on how you look at it, one of the biggest weaknesses of Armored Warfare. The developers are actually focusing on this very hard because I'm in touch with them, so I'm just seeing that sometimes
Hey,
they
wake up.
complain about much broken stuff that was left over when they took over the development. So yes, this is absolutely one of the priorities, and that includes the visual sides too, because the players are often complaining that the game could look better. That's definitely, let's say, valid complaint.
Yeah,
Uh,
the render model looks arguably
yeah,
worse than it did last patch.
that's questionable. Actually, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I checked. It doesn't feel worse, but in any case, they are definitely working on an improved render that should make the game look better. I've seen some of the earlier tests, and it looks just gorgeous. But I better not leak any stuff like that, because then I mean it might not be the final form, and people will go like, "Oh my God, you promised," and so on.
Yeah. We have. Is there a? Oh yeah. According to Baboon, the CPU load is now too high. Apparently. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure if me or Frank can actually answer that because that's more of an in-game technical issue than it is to do with.
Sorry,
The Baboon is talking about how the CPU load is too high.
CPU load.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that's basically an engine thing. not much to do about that. But yeah, it's a problem.
Oh god, okay. I now have everyone asking questions. Is there balance possible for tanks like the M60, which had much faster rate of fire in real life? You know, MBTs having like doing 100 less damage, but have like less than
Okay.
half a second faster reload and stuff like that. Or does that
Yeah.
just come under
So
balance?
basically, that's just balance. I mean, the argument that okay, let me
Oh.
put it like this, and I know it might sound a bit hypocritical, but this is how realism works. Uh, we make a change, and then we try to come up with a realistic, let's say, reason for it. So, for example, I don't know, the XMA XM1A3, the Tier 10 Abrams. As you know, it now has basically a two-round autoloader. It's like a double-barreled shotgun. So there's that, and well, we came up with, or the developers came up with reasoning that it now has a autoloader system that was actually developed for it in real life called fast draw. So we say it as a fast draw, but this happened in real life or this is realistic is never an argument for changing vehicle characteristics. Basically, if we say, oh yeah, it's realistic, and we change the characteristic to something else, we wanted to change the characteristic in the first place, and we then just look for a convenient explanation. So that basically covers the realism question. With that being said, the M60 is actually performing really well due to a bug where it has a very thick armor, much thicker than it was intended. So we'll see how it goes after 0.20, and after that we can make some decisions.
Why is the Chieftain line complete dog shit?
Because the chieftain is shit in real life.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
okay, I know I
I,
said that about realism and so on, but yeah, I mean, the chieftain. The problem with the chieftain is that it's slow and
it's
it doesn't
fat.
have. Yeah, it's big and it doesn't have advanced armor. So yeah, the chieftains are definitely going to get a buff because they suck.
So this is from Fuel the Tank Girl, probably one of Mail IU's favourite people. In the guided missiles, you have less of them in an ammo capacity. They do less damage than MBT shells, and despite in some cases being the same or higher caliber, they do less damage, meaning
Yeah,
that it is extremely difficult to take on MBTs and such when you have less ammo, and of course,
sorry.
uh,
Control?
yeah, yeah, and they're more difficult to control as well.
Um,
So
so
basically, less damage, less
so
shells and
basically,
stuff.
that's not true. First of all, they can be controlled. That's big. unlike tank shells, they can be controlled. Second thing, I don't really think that's true. I mean, I had more success when I was playing on Russian server, and I'm kind of like playing on Russian server right now. I know I shouldn't say it, but I really need to sometimes, test PvP and so on, and you don't get much that during my work hours. Anyway, so basically, I don't think that's like super true because as far as I know, the missile. I mean, maybe she's referring to some specific missiles or specific examples, but overall, the missile damage should be based on the caliber of the missile, which almost invariably is higher than the one of the tank gun of the same tier.
And also the fact that the AFEs only have 20 missiles, which isn't really enough for them to be able to carry a game like an MBT can, because
Yeah, I mean,
an
they're
MBT
not
has
they're
50,
not
an AFE
they're
has
not supposed
20.
to be carrying games. I mean, it's like it's a 4 ton or 5 ton four-wheeled vehicle. It's not supposed to be killing hundreds of or dozens of tanks. That's not its role on the battlefield. Its role on the battlefield is to scout. Its role on the battlefield is to support it. fire, but it's not a tank. If you want to just go and kill everybody, I mean, it's like in other MMORPGs. You go play some sort of damage and tank hybrid, and not a healer or not a range support class.
Right. Next question: Why do light tanks are better? Why are light tanks better scouts than AFVs? Because for some reason they have the same or higher view ranges, and since we have the same system for view range, this means that they can have the same or
Yeah.
higher.
Basically, the difference between light tanks and okay, let me start. Let me start from the start, so to say. In Balance 2.0, light tanks were actually intended to become sort of quasi scouts, with their role expanded from flanking and damage dealing to also spotting. Um, this is intended, but they're not supposed to be better than AFVs, and actually they're not. At least not in the not in the overall performance sense. For one, the AFVs, especially the dedicated scouts like Crab, can enhance their view range and spotting capabilities further by modules. By the way of modules, there are modules that increase their view range, and there are modules like the thermal imaging that increase their or decrease the the camo bonus that the bushes give to the enemy. So, and of course, there's that part where the AFB class, the spotting indicator, the indicator that you are spotted, it activates immediately after you are spotted, unlike the other classes. So that gives you an extra edge in spotting. So, I mean, they do have more tools to do the spotting job better. I mean, light tanks can spot, absolutely, but not as well as a dedicated scout.
Okay, another question is from a actual M60 tanker in real life, I believe, the commander. Is that why do well? I know I've seen the images and seen the service history of him. But why do the M60s carry 57 or 60 rounds in game? Well, in real life, but they don't carry them in game. So it's kind of an ammo capacity thing for vehicles.
Oh, that's pure balance. That's just balance, you know. In real life, I don't know how much M60 carries. 30 rounds. Right.
It's actually 50 to 60. It's a big
Really?
tank,
Okay.
yeah. They're all
Well,
using 105s, and it's a big tank.
okay. In that case, I mean, the answer is still the same. It's just balance. You know, that's the same thing. Why most vehicles in the game carry many more missiles than they do in real life. I mean, for example, the Terminators, they have the 4 missiles in the launchers, and that's it. They don't have extra sort
And
of
the
spare
Weasel
fuel.
carries like 20 tow missiles, which is bigger than the entire mass of the tank.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always about balance and playability.
Okay, I'm having to play a game and look at the comments. It's okay. Does anyone else have any? Baboon, you're with us in the TeamSpeak channel, aren't you?
Yeah. I still say that AFVs, when they're running 90-degree angles to a missile thrower, the AFVs outrun the missiles. I mean, you cannot control them well enough to hit these AFVs at any kind of distance.
Well,
Is there
that's
any chance
realistic.
that? Huh? Is there any
That's real.
chance that the speed would be increased for the missiles?
That's actually realistic. But yeah, I think they will be making some adjustments to, especially the top tier missiles like tier 9, tier 10. But overall, I mean, yeah, it's very difficult to hit like a moving target that's moving diagonally or across the screen
Yeah.
with a missile. I mean, that's sort of like intended. You're not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like you fire and you always hit solution. I mean, it's not like that for a gun either. You can't. It's very difficult to aim a gun like that unless you're firing AP rounds.
Right. Yeah, I'm just wondering.
Another question I can think of is that PvE has less rewards now than it did before, which is alright. Why has PvE rewards been changed?
I think that's not much about changing rewards themselves. It's more like about the changing the conditions of PvE. I mean, maybe it's my impression, but I think the amount of bots was generally reduced, which means, I mean, less damage done, less
More
rewards.
questions, please,
It's
guys.
something that the developers will look into, or I have to ask about it because, yeah, it's something that a lot of people complain about.
Yeah, I make at least 100,000 less with premium time and a tier 10 tank than I used to.
On the other hand, it's possible that this change is intended because the progression speed with all the bonuses coming out and so on was way too high.
Yeah, what the
But I'll have to ask.
speaking of bonuses, the chests are almost impossible to get now. In the play, you have to get the secondaries in order to get the chests in PvE.
Yep.
Uh, that's
I
pretty
mean,
drastic.
yeah, it's possible there's some sort of a problem with the calculation, but overall it's intended for them to be a bit more rare, or actually a lot more rare. So depends. I mean, in theory, what could happen on low population, and that's just my guess, but it could be that if, let's say, some sort of organized group, like a clan or a group of players, wanted to farm them, they could basically rig matches and set the farming standards so high that the others wouldn't be able to participate or would get the boxes far more rarely. But that's just my guess. We will be looking definitely into this.
Yeah, because blue stars ought to get some kind of box when they achieve the best in the battle. I thought, but anyway, that's just me.
Hmm.
Every blue star game I've gotten, unless I've gotten a secondary with it, I get no reward other than the standard reward.
Well, as I said, I can't really give you an answer right now from my head. We will be looking into it.
Okay, thank you.
Um, I know this is probably going to come up, but the modules and stuff, the retrofits, they all seem to be quite bland now and unoriginal. What was bad about
Hmm.
the retrofits before, in which tanks could be configured to be different ways and there was a lot of options to choose from?
Honestly, I don't really have the access to the exact reasoning because that was still back then. That was an Obsidian thing, but my guess was that some of the retrofits needed overhaul in general because some of the retrofits were basically useless, and this is what they came up with. I mean, they distilled it to a system where some retrofits or all retrofits have some sort of use, even though it might not be as good as it was before. Now, with that being said, the current retrofit system, the 0.19 version at least, is just a foundation of sorts. We will be developing the system further. Um, I would have to look. Maybe it's even in 0.21, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's definitely something that's going to be developed further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the people that are just starting out, they're complaining in my battalion that that they can't afford these retrofits, these V2 retrofits at 3 million a pop. Is there any plans on making it like universal, where you buy it one time and you can fit it into every tank, like in what?
Mm, No, I don't think so. But there are some plans or some ideas to make them removable. Basically, the way equipment works in World of Tanks.
I see. Yeah, movable. That's what I meant.
So another question is that why do saber shells do so much damage, even to like vehicles, and the fact that we have like tier 4s and 5s doing 800 damage in cases when they hit someone in the front armor and get the 20% damage bonus, it seems to feel a little bit whack and off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that was one of those very early, let's say, balance 2.0 designs. These bonuses and so on. I'm not entirely convinced that it's going to be like that this is the final form. Um, it's something that's being discussed. The idea behind the bonus was for let's say very light vehicles to be not as invulnerable to Sabot as they are or as they were in 0.18. How much it worked, that's another question. And as I said, it's something that the developers are still looking into.
Why does actually no? That's probably a bug. Do you play the game, and is there any favorite vehicles you like?
Not as much anymore as I would like to because there have been some company changes, and basically I have more work than I used to. So in my free time, I prefer to do something else. But I do play from time to time when I want to test something or something like that.
Um, Ukrainian line like T-84s and stuff, Polish Wilks. Any chance?
French.
Yeah, that's actually planned. That's the extension of the T80 line that we talked about because T80 was also built in Kharkov, so was the T64.
So it's going to be more of a line oriented on the factory than nationality.
Yeah, something like that. Although I mean, obviously it's one of the same to a degree because Kharkov is in Ukraine, so the other projects coming in that line are also Ukrainian origin, at least from what I know.
What about the French lines?
Yeah, those are actually still planned. It's one of the more developed lines. Originally, we were planning to release the Polish line in 0.19 and the French line in 0.20. That obviously didn't happen, but we'll get there. It's one of those priority lines.
Good deal. Good deal. I've run out of Spitfire.
It's alright. Come on, guys. Questions. I mean, like, I always have these questions in my streams and stuff, and then like when someone actually comes on, it's like a couple of questions, like a few minutes, and everyone just dies. I'm just like, damn it!
How soon till 2.0?
It's next week, I believe.
Sorry.
How long will it be, you think, estimated for 2.0 to arrive?
Shit, I didn't bring
You
my
mean
cat.
0.20?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not bring my cat.
Yeah. It's for now. It's planned for next week.
Really? Excellent.
I believe that what's planned is basically a bunch of patches that are all going to be close together, rather than just one big overall one.
Well, there will be a bigger gap between 0.20 and 0.21, but there will be more, let's say, 0.20 hotfixes, or I don't even I shouldn't call it hotfixes, like update fixes to basically 0.20 sub patches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's see. Keep scrolling at my stream chat.
No more questions, Sophie?
I'm looking at my stream chat right now. Why is the AI so good at hitting people with missiles?
Yeah.
Because we programmed it this way. Um, well, as for the real question, yeah, or real answer, it really depends on the AI parameters. On lower difficulty settings, the AI isn't as brutal. But that was always the intention, like to make the hard difficulty setting harder than it was before. And whether there will be some changes to it, there's a concern that the AI is basically too good at targeting weak spots, and that's not really good for gameplay. So developers will be looking into it.
Game crashes happening more than they used to. Any idea what's up with that, and will it be fixed soon?
Yeah, yeah, that's actually very well known issue. Basically, there are several causes for that, and all three should be. I'm saying three, but it's just the latest batch. They should be fixed by the time we are receiving 0.20. There have been several causes identified, and they are still present on the Russian server, but the Russian server will receive a hotfix, and we will receive the already hotfixed version.
So, why do the Russians get everything first? I can imagine this being asked at some point, so you might as well ask it now.
Well, I mean,
Fair game.
the answer is the same as it's always been. There's a certain, let's say, threshold of issue tolerance on the Russian server, and the threshold for the tolerance on the EU server and NA especially is much lower. What it
Mhm.
means is basically the Western communities react really badly on bugs, and the basic idea, and that was since the launch of early access, was to launch the Russian version, and if there are any outstanding issues, to fix them and launch the EU version, and that's basically what's happening. So in many cases, we actually get Russian players. The other day, actually, that was yesterday even, I think. I had a Russian player write me, "Oh my God, why do you guys get everything fixed and we have to suffer through the raw versions?" And so I guess it's always the grass is greener on the other side, but
Mhm.
in the end, I think we're actually better off the way it is right now.
Yeah. So, is there any like priorities when it comes to vehicles to develop, like national lines or classes or anything?
Oh, huh, yeah. Actually, yeah, that's a pretty good question. The biggest priority right now is to release the content that was ready as early as June, July 2016, because that's when the Polish and Czechoslovak line was actually ready. Everything got basically delayed because of Balance 2.0, which was supposed to arrive on November 2016. Actually, at first it was supposed to arrive in September, then it was prolonged to November, and we were like already, or like, what the hell? Why November? Why so late? And now it's April, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Colin
But yeah,
asks.
sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
answer.
alright.
Yeah, so basically the classes. The focus right now is on high tier vehicles, of more mobile classes. That means AFVs, TDs, and light tanks. So when we release the Czechoslovak and Polish TD slash AFV line in 0.21, hopefully, it will be the next focus will be high tier vehicles of those light classes, and we have several options, and actually we have a plenty of options, but yeah, it's not if you're if you're thinking that we will be adding more and more Russian tanks, okay, we will, but it's not the primary focus.
Okay. God, what was it? I had a really good question lined up and I forgot. Oh, oh god, I forgot it again. This is like first world problems right here. And I just had a friendly hit me for 1,128 damage. Ugh. Okay, will artillery have their illumination smoke rounds?
That's a very good question, which should appear in the next Q&A. At this moment, I actually don't know. I submitted the request for information to the developers. It was planned, but when exactly, we'll see.
Why introduce a T-72, a T-64, and a T-80 line when only one of the lines is fully complete?
Because all three are kind of like iconic Soviet/Russian tanks, and well, the Russian audience would demand it as much as the Americans would demand the Abrams and the M60 series, and the Germans the Leopard and Leopard 2. So these are like core iconic tanks. They have shitloads of modifications. In fact, I think that these 5 tanks I just named are probably the most important tanks in post-war history, or one of those. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a complete tank game without them.
Yeah. Why is artillery not able to do PvP anymore?
Is that a real question?
That's a real question.
I mean, the answer is kind of like obvious. When you look at the forum, you see or you saw the old RT1. It wasn't as bad as in World of Tanks, of course, because our RT wasn't as bad, but still having a class.
It was
having
more
a
of
class.
a inconvenience than
Yeah,
anything.
that's it exactly. Having a class with indirect fire that you can't retaliate against, that was the core of the issue, not the fact how much damage it did or didn't. There were talks actually, the removal of RT from PvP or from the game at all. That's nothing new. There were talks about this as early as actually alpha. It was like a month or two ago, a month or two after I joined the company, which was like in February 2015, I think. In any case, yeah, it was it's something that has been on the table for a very long time, and in Balance 2.0 we finally got to do it. So I think the game is better for it.
I agree.
Look, I literally just keep forgetting questions I want to ask. It's incredibly annoying. Do you have any favorite tanks in real life? Like any that you really, really, really like?
Like in Armored Warfare,
In real life, like
in real life.
just as a
Oh
just
yeah,
as a genuine
actually,
question.
one of my I know it might sound strange, but the Russian tanks are like I like them. They have beautiful, simplistic designs. They aren't super complicated. They are elegant. I think the prettiest tank I've ever seen is Object 777 or 777 I don't know how to pronounce it
Yeah,
properly.
they way too many numbers for those tanks.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's when you look at it, you see how elegant the design is, and I never thought I would become a Russian tank fanboy, but yeah, it's some of the stuff they are doing. It's really super interesting.
So, Silent Stalker confirmed for Russian tank bias.
Well, there's a short way from Czechoslovak tanks, because all the or most of the post-war projects were based or Czechoslovak projects were based on Russian designs. So it's kind of like something you have to master in order to understand why was this and that done, and yeah.
So, any plans for community made skins for tanks?
Huh.
You know, kind of like
Actually,
what Warframe does.
let me put it like this. It's the chance is bigger than before, and it's something that we are actually considering. Not like community-made skins per se, but let's say some sort of artistic content or contests
Like that.
that
Like a
that
you
will,
choose the best one.
yeah, exactly. Or the best choose the best one. That there's not much difference, but if you mean like modding in World of Tanks, then no.
Yeah. Speaking of, will there be any like themed camo skins in games? You know, like guards armor schemes, different divisional ones and stuff.
Yeah,
To have like,
that's a very good question. That's actually something I've proposed personally several times over. Now until Tuesday, I think we are deciding for this kind of plans for this year, for the rest of the year anyway. And that's exactly what I proposed. I mean, I won't tell you which ones specifically, but yeah, it's something that's being proposed, and if the developers agree with it, and to be quite frank, I don't see why they shouldn't. Then yeah, it's quite possible that something like this. I mean, we all know that the editions and the wolf and claw and whatever didn't look too good, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I would definitely enjoy better if I had, for example, Desert Storm Abrams for sale. So yeah.
Yeah, not these clownish ones. What about the skirmish mode? Are you happy with that, or is it? Don't you think that kind of on the EU, especially, don't you think that'll kill PvP?
Well, it wasn't made that much for EU. It was made mostly for NA because the NA PvP is kind of like that.
Oh, okay.
But for the EU, we had some occurrences where the skirmish mode was appearing when it shouldn't. Like there was a full queue of players, and it still triggered the skirmish mode. We were looking into it, and I think that the situation improved since. But yeah, during load times, it makes sense to introduce it because otherwise the waiting times are really long, and there have been several videos or gifs by the community where they show how they wait in a queue for 5 hours or something. That's ridiculous, right?
yeah.
So yeah.
Another two questions actually. Why is the amphibious ability not on certain vehicles anymore? You know, like certain vehicles having 20 seconds of drowning time compared to others. And why is falling damage really high now?
The falling damage is a bug. That's a pure bug that's fixed in 0.20, at least in one of the hotfixes. The amphibious thing actually is new to me. I didn't know that it's no longer there. That's very likely not intended. And thanks for bringing it up. I'll write it down right now, and I will contact developers about it. Do you have an
Yeah, cause
example? Which specific?
The amphibious vehicles like the BMPs and stuff, swimmable tanks don't have it anymore. Like basically all of the BMPs and the BMDs are able to have
So
like
they drown just as quick as
yeah
any other tank.
yeah. Whereas before they had
Okay.
20 seconds.
Yeah, I'll report it. That's very likely not intended. That was at least I
Uh,
haven't seen anything.
Bigger maps engagement ranges, which I guess is kind of corresponding with the fact that MBTs have such like long ranges now. And do you miss the Obsidian team?
Bigger maps, yes. I mean, have you seen the new global operations map? It's actually
I
pretty.
haven't. There hasn't been any player base for it.
Oh shit. Yeah, I must admit voluntarily that I played it only on the Western server. But yeah, yeah. I mean, bigger than the new Globes map? I don't think so. That's probably as big as it gets, and it's really big. It plays really well. Too bad we don't have the population for it. As for what was the second question?
Do you miss the Obsidian team?
No.
I feel like that's going to be a very controversial answer.
I am sure it will, but I can't really go into details. Sorry.
I know. Shoot, bro. The chat's run out of questions suddenly. Come on, guys. Ooh. What I do realise that since there's been a couple of MyCom staff members fired and everyone knows about it now, why are you staying with Armoured Warfare?
Sorry. Again?
Since some staff members have previously gone from MyCom and everything, a question's probably going to be asked is why are you staying with Armoured Warfare?
Well, I enjoy writing about tanks for one, and secondly, believe it or not, after the big change, let's say, I actually think that the armored warfare is better off, and I feel happier now.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be any more assault ATVs?
Assault
So,
AFEs.
what's an assault?
Yeah, I don't know either.
A BRM2?
Oh, the Terminators.
Oh,
No.
That kind of style.
the Terminators, or
He's asking if there's going to be any more like Terminator style tanks. So like.
I see.
Like the BTR 82A.
BTR 82A is basically an APC with a gun. I don't understand what you mean by assault. You know, like heavily armed or heavily armored.
I think it means like urban warfare style AFVs.
Oh, yeah. I know of two that are eventually coming. One of them was already leaked. That's the Katyuka, the Proto Terminator, and the second one wasn't leaked yet. That's basically a French Terminator vehicle based on Leclerc, but that's the way of.
Excellent.
Is there any like plans to add like high tier wheeled AFVs soon? You know, like the BTR 90, which has a ridiculous amount of weapons. It had like a grenade launcher and stuff.
Yeah, that's personally I don't really think it works very well because you actually have to carry ammo for all these weapon systems. But beyond we're planning the Polish line that's already sort of fits the description. But beyond that, some high tier vehicles, yes, but not a full line as far as I know.
And I
At least
guess
not.
will there be any modifications done to the proving grounds and like an armor calculator type thing like they have in the wall of the tank where you can see
Yeah.
thick?
Good. That's a very good question. There will be modifications to the proving grounds indeed in 0.20 as well, but not these drastic ones like the armor calculator. That's not planned for 0.20
Yeah,
or
it crashed, guys.
0.21. Maybe in the future. In the meanwhile, we'll have to look into how to make the armor UI more, let's say, understandable, because without the coefficients, players really don't have any reliable way of determining the exact thickness of the armor.
Right.
Is there any plans to introduce other AI targets instead of vehicles?
What target? Sorry.
like other targets instead of like vehicles as in PvE?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so because this is not a super high priority.
Well, it is on NA.
Yeah, but to be honest, NA servers have always been really hard to please, and they are pretty PvE or oriented, while it feels like EU and Russian servers are typically more competitive.
Well, I kind of disagree. I actually think that the ratio of hardcore PvPers to the general population was higher on NA, but of course everyone was forced into PvE because of the queues, and then PvP died down.
How will we get them back?
Yeah,
That's the $99
that's
question.
exactly. That's a very good question. I mean, we already started some sort of advertising, obviously, and that's actually the same thing that Captain Fancy Pants was answering yesterday on another stream. Um, I mean, it's not like we'll ever have a Super Bowl commercial, right? I mean, those
Right.
things are super expensive. But we already started a wave of, let's say, advertising, contacting the players to go back and give Balance 2.0 a try. And I must say that actually the increase was in the player base, especially on EU, was very significant. It of course it dropped a bit since the 0.19 launch,
Mm-hmm.
but generally speaking, we're on a good way, and I think that with Steam, it will get even better.
I mean, something persuasive like play on the NA for an extra 10% bonus for 1 year.
Yeah, that's the thing. These things don't work, you know. That's just whenever I see players, for example, proposing like, oh, give them a free tank, they will come back. They won't. This is this kind of bonus thing. That's not something that drives players back. Really, the only thing that actually drives players back, apart from obviously advertising, but that's more intended for new players, um, is when it's the word of mouth, or a word of mouth, where they hear that the game really changed for the best, and that's what we're trying to achieve. Whether it's working or not, that's another matter. But bonuses as such are not bringing players back.
So, NA people want to know if we don't get our population back, with all our money spent on this game here at the NA, will we be transferred in full to the EU, or is it just over?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Um, you have to understand that this step is final, and if we do this, or if we allow players to transfer account, for example, that there's no way going back. The NA server is like completely finished. For us, it's also, let's say, an organizational issue, because if you don't have an NA server, why have an NA office and so on? So we're not really ready to have this kind of chat right now, and I don't really have any plans for you to announce. But yeah,
Well, I don't want it to happen, but there's a lot of people who don't want to spend any more gold over here
yeah.
because they think that this thing is going to go belly up.
Well, there are many such people on EU as well. Um, I don't blame them. That's only natural. And in some ways, I have to say that we haven't really helped the situation by staying silent around the times of the Obsidian split. I think it should have been handled a bit differently, but that's only my personal opinion. That doesn't really matter in the end. So yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. It's we are aware, and everything that we do has consequences. We
Mhm.
are
Well,
aware of
we
those
thank.
consequences.
I thank you very much for answering all of my questions.
Well, I wish I had better answers for you, and unfortunately, at this moment, I don't.
Well, that gives me an insight.
So, armored warfare causing malware issues such as dragging, not being able to drop and drag, which has been discussed, I think, internally,
Yeah,
as well as the game causing Firefox to crash,
it does.
breaking operating systems and stuff.
That's. I don't think that's. It. I don't think that can be said this generally. I mean, none of these. I'm running Firefox and I have none of those issues. So it's not a general rule.
You think it's more of just a freak accident than anything?
Yes, I don't know how often they are or how common they are. I don't know if there are like super many players that happens, but so far I have seen about maybe a dozen reports altogether where the game causes something nasty, and that's excluding the overlay issue. The How did you describe it? The first thing you talked about, the what
Uh,
is the word in
uh,
English?
the drag and drop and stuff in which you're not
Yes,
able to
that's
drag
that's
anything.
that's what I mean. So that's a known issue, but otherwise, the game is not causing the system to crash, and
Hmm.
it doesn't.
How how can you stop these aim bots that we see so much in PvE?
Aimbots?
Yeah, and PvP. You can tell that there's no human behind it by the actions of the tanks. Uh, I would say that Spitfire has a better handle on it than I do on that.
I encountered a Challenger 1 bot once. It was quite freaky, but apart from that, that's the only
Yeah,
time I've ever seen a confirmed bot after playing Armored Warfare for 2 years now since the alpha.
I
yeah.
see it on PvE.
Well,
PvE, to be
yeah,
honest, in PvE, in in some cases there are players and bots who act exactly the same. Like they go to the same places and just sit there. It's kind of hard to distinguish between which is which sometimes.
well. I guess it always boils down into what is a bot and what is a stupid player. We do actually we answered something like that a few weeks back or 3 weeks back or so in a Q&A.
Hmm.
Basically, there's an anti cheat system, anti bot system. I can't really tell you any details.
I
I
understand.
can I can tell you that I personally oversaw several players banned based on its reports. So it's not like it isn't working, but in other cases, and those are actually the majority, the players that are accused of botting are usually just it's a grandpa who's barely moving the mouse, and he's happy that the tank moves forward. To the outsider, no, you're laughing, but I had this experience several years ago when we were making a collection for the real life veterans, and I was participating in it with my old blog, and as a reward, or not a reward, but we met with some of those veterans, and one of those guys he wasn't a veteran, but he was one of those guys who was overseeing it. Was like a 60-year-old colonel, like real life military or something like that. And he said that he loves to play World of Tanks because he served on the T-34 and whatever, but he can barely move the tank because he
Yeah,
just presses one keyboard and so I can imagine that there are many more people like that out there, and not just in World of Tanks, in Armored Warfare obviously as well. So yeah, it's when somebody behaves stupidly, Actually, in majority cases, it's not a bot. It's just a confused or player or newbie or old guy or whatever.
Or somebody who just logged onto their friend's account and
Or
doesn't
they
have any
Yeah,
lost
idea what
their
they're
own
doing.
or small
mind.
kids. Actually, there are several cases where this is again World of Tanks, but I imagine that this happens in Armored Warfare as well, where people let their like 4-year-old kids play. And it looks like
Right,
that
right.
out there.
And plus the people that get bombed all the time.
Yeah. So let's give it like 10 more minutes, guys. A few more questions.
Is dinner getting cold?
Is what?
Is dinner getting cold?
Dinner getting cold? No, actually, I didn't start making it yet. That's the problem.
And what time is it where you're at right now?
9:30 p.m.
Central European time is like an hour ahead of me.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Not Sunday.
Well, I just had a warrior in a PvP game who I accidentally missiled with. He's been swearing at me a few times and he just drowned himself and logged off. So there's the entertainment of the day. Probably one of those intelligent bots. A couple of things. Why is there not more forum moderators? Which is a pretty internal question, I guess. South Korean line, and that's it.
I didn't understand the question. Sorry.
Why
Why is
is
there not?
why is there not more forum moderators, and when is there going to be a South Korean line?
Oh, I thought the two were connected. Okay. Why are there no more forum moderators? Because we actually some months ago we ran in something like a recruiting drive for Armored Warfare for moderators. Spitfire is one of those moderators, so she saw the results. Probably we were able
They
to get
were disturbing.
one reliable guy, which proved out to be just fine, and then there was just a bunch of trolls who applied. And quite honestly, the moderators in Armored Warfare are sort of rewarded with better knowledge of what goes behind the scenes than average players because they signed a non-disclosure contract. So we want to make sure that those people that we are getting into our circle of trust are reliable. And right now, I'm very pleased with the moderators, and I think they're doing just a great job. But obviously, it's been difficult to get a few better candidates. As for the Korean line, it's also that's something that's planned, but not in a super near future.
So one last question on my end. So what is your opinion about the MBTs being a little bit too soft armor-wise now?
Well, I mean, I'm not a PvP expert, and I will be the first one to admit it. But personally, from what little 0.19 experience I had, I feel they are okay. But of course, that's something that's better determined by either player feedback and I mean overall player feedback, not just uber lead players, and by which is perhaps even more important by telemetry, like collected data about how the vehicles actually perform.
I
Because
see.
for example, there are vehicles that are definitely having too thin armor. One would be the M62000, which was one of the reasons why M62000, the premium one, sucks in PvE. But it's going to get probably some upgrades.
Well, I think the MBT 70 gun reload time is absolutely atrocious for a tier 6 vehicle.
Well, it's a big ass gun.
In my opinion, it's actually quite fine. It does a lot of damage, and people usually don't like getting hit by it.
What really sucks is actually the Starship. Starship is underpowered. We know about it, and there will be some adjustments to it.
And then again, there is also the issue of the Sheridan being better than the Starship in every issue when it comes to gun performance.
Yeah.
So, why are like heat shells, sabot shells, and stuff bouncing on extremely thin armor in the game? I mean, we have things like expeditionary tanks, which have like 40mm of front armor bouncing extremely high penetration saber rounds and missiles.
And the
Well,
M8 too.
okay, those are let's say separate issues. For one, the M8 is totally overpowered and it's going to get nerfed in 0.20. The armor isn't like just a tick; it's completely broken. So that's going to be adjusted, nerfed. Another thing is that in real life, very thin armor can actually bounce a lot of stuff when hit under extreme angle. And for example, the expeditionary tank, when everyone's aiming at the upper front plate, yeah, I mean it has a really good angle, so it's not going to penetrate. But it's something that we're looking into in the form of a feedback for the player, where we will be improving the UI or the battle UI to let players better know what actually happened. This should happen already in 0.20. And furthermore, I don't really think that we have anything planned for this particular issue apart from nerfing those tanks that are obviously broken. For example, like the Cactus era, the explosive reactive armor on the MP3 and the MP3M is super overpowered against kinetic shells. Abrams armor was overpowered against kinetic shells. What else? What else? There were several more cases, but I can't remember them from that. Sorry.
What about the fails to fuse, even on 90-degree angles? I get a lot of those.
Fails to fuse on a 90-degree angle. That's probably a bug because fail to
That's
fuse should be around 70 degrees, 60 degrees actually. Um, no, sorry, 70 degrees. These numbers from head.
Have you noticed that, Spitfire?
Yeah, in my case, I feel like it's the fail to fuse angle being a little bit too high or being a bug.
Yeah, that's obviously looks if it like at 90 degrees, then it's obviously a bug. Well, we need to look into it. So if you have any screenshots or if you remember which tank was affected by this, then we can look into it because this sounds like something like spaced armor issue rather than a shell issue.
Another thing was, oh god, what was it? Okay, I completely forgot what it was. Um, oh, the hydromatic suspension for vehicles that have it, which none vehicles, you know what, the ones which the tracks are able to move the vehicle up and down, give them better gun and
Yeah,
elevation
that's not
stuff.
hydromatic suspension. That's hydraulic.
Hydro.
Sorry. That's actually, if you remember, I talked about this earlier. It's one of the features that we are planning to introduce. But with that being said, I mean, there aren't that many vehicles that have it. I mean, the BMD series have it. The Japanese tanks have it. What else? Some of those experimental Soviet tanks had it. I mean, it's not something that would make a massive impact on the game.
Will they reduce the tracking time from? It's now 12 seconds when you get tracked.
User was moved to your channel.
12 seconds tracking time? I don't think we have
Yeah.
any plans to reduce it at this moment.
Hello, user.
Good evening, guys.
It's Geno. Geno
So
speaks.
the tracking armor retrofit is almost necessary on every tank. Then.
Oh,
Yeah, so
uh,
let's make it a few more questions, and then I'll.
so will the Weasel get its gun back? You know, vehicles that only have missiles and not guns.
Unlikely, no.
Any idea why, or just because it doesn't really need it?
Because at that tier, the pure autocannon vehicle would not perform well after the changes in
Mhm.
balance 2.0.
I guess it's more of a gun and missile combination, or just because it's so
Yes.
unrealistic, it's just retarded.
Yeah, something like that.
A probably a question from me, which I'm trying to think of because I usually have this issue, but it's like, hey, I thought of a really good question, I forgot about it. Um, God. Okay, I completely forgot about said question. Rip. What was it? Oh no. I remember this question being asked over and over and over and over again, not by me, but adding things like early Cold War vehicles like the T-10, souped-up World War II vehicles like the Super Sherman and stuff. Any chance of them coming into game? You know, vehicles like the M103, T-10, Super Sherman and stuff.
Yeah, as a part of a full line, yes, but specifically like that, we would just schedule a whole bunch of low tier vehicles for a specific update. Then no. I mean, the time spent on lower tiers up to tier 3, tier 4 is super low, and I think the players would actually would enjoy more if we introduced more stuff like mid-tier vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Um, Hellspiker, is perma tracking going to be dealt with? This is the issue where perma tracking is so long that even vehicles with high reload times are able to just keep firing and shooting another vehicle's tracks off over and over and over again.
This is one of the changes that's intentional. I actually can't say I agree with it personally, but it's an intentional mechanism to make tracking more to play a bigger role. The same thing goes for module damage, because you might have noticed in Balance 2.0 you get a lot of let's say group of modules, and yeah, it's an intentional gameplay style to make it more important to target modules.
Yeah, like broken guns. Yeah.
I think that's more of the AI and the turret rings just being a weak spot where everyone shoots at them.
That's the thing, that because the AI always aims basically at the connection between the turret and the hull, because that's defined as the center of the vehicle.
Every shot. My Leo 10, tier 10. Golly, that turret ring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Destructible terrain and stuff, so tanks being able to penetrate multiple layers of terrain, houses and stuff being destroyed, making cover for yourself out of rubble and shit. Is that presumably like a thing for a much later date?
Very likely not.
So that's a no.
Most likely no, because of the limitations of the engine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was experimented with.
Final questions, guys. Final
Trial
questions.
videos, but from what I remember, the basic consensus was that first, it's super complicated to introduce, and it doesn't really work on a low spec PC. So
So we're on final questions from the stream. I asked the final questions about 15 seconds ago, so they should be appearing now. This is their final chance to ask. So they better make
Is it
it good.
still the Cry engine?
Sorry.
Are you still using the Cry engine, or is it modified? Or when they took over, did they
Oh,
change engines?
yeah, that's actually, yeah, that's the thing. Pretty much no game in the world runs in like a stock engine. It's always modified to some degree. Ours was definitely modified. Actually, from what I know right now, it's a hybrid of two versions. One is really modern, that's used for the render. One is older, that's used for the core. And yeah, so yeah, it's still a Cry engine though.
Good, thank you.
I'm assuming there are no plans to move to a lumberyard anytime soon.
Not that I know of. Considering what kind of insane effort that would be, I doubt it.
Will there be fixes on bogus items that block shots, like destroyed buses and windshields?
Yeah, but that's the thing. This is not a single issue. This is an issue for each object separately. So what we need you guys to do is make a screenshot or at least a description of which tank or which object and where is eating shells or something like that, and post it on the forums, and we'll get to it. I mean, we are regularly, or the well, not we, but the community managers are submitting reports on this kind of stuff. But if it doesn't get reported, chances that we uh, specifically will catch it is very low.
So it's dependent more on the moderators just simply filtering feedback back to the community managers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean not moderators, but community managers. It really depends on someone actually reporting it. It doesn't matter how we can post it on forums. We can submit a report to support service that also works. That
User
case.
joined your channel.
So in the end,
User
there are
left
plenty
your
ways of
channel.
how to participate in this feedback gathering business, and it's up to you if you want to give it the time or not.
User joined your channel.
Hey, folks.
Hi.
Hey, yeah.
In any way, if there's no more questions.
Just a final question from me. Will there be any chance of themed games going on? Like pick a certain vehicle, it gets matched up against everyone in the same tier, and they get put together. You know, like a hypothetical Cold War folder gap scenario or something.
Historical battles. Not for now. No. It's something that was or that is being brought up from time to time. The problems are basically the same when Wargaming tried it like 3 or 4 years ago. These kind of battles don't make for. They look nice, but they aren't very balanced because and there's also the problem of participation. Because if I use World of Tanks terms, if you put one Tiger against 5 T-34s, everybody still wants to play the Tiger. So yeah, I mean, in this sense, it doesn't work very well. It would work much better in a PvE scenario, and
Yeah, like that kind of
definitely
thing.
something that might be worth looking on. Actually, what the hell? I'm going to ask about it right now. Good point.
As it is though, I see a way to make it work in PvP as well. If you tie it into the lore that you're writing, Frank, you could, just have one faction, i.e. the Hashtag Militia, and then people who are in that team, you can only pick certain tanks, but still keep it balanced, like only
Yeah,
T-72s on one
that was
side.
the original idea. Actually, the original idea was that each team would be only playing specific tanks, but in the end, it was judged too restrictive.
Alright. I believe that's all the questions wrapped up for now. Thanks, Frank, for coming. I'm sure that you're probably very hungry for your dinner.
No problem.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, see you guys later.
Take care, Frank.
Bye.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.
User disconnected from your channel.
Thank you for letting me ask questions.
I'm going to be doing PV now if anyone wants to join.
Well,
Just as
I
a
gotta
final
eat
20-minute
myself.
thing. Alright.
There.
Take care,
I gotta
Baboon.
go, but thank you for letting me
It's alright.
participate.
Take care.
User disconnected from your channel.
Get any good answers?
Some.
Cool.
I try to ask the usual answers people would do.
Yeah.
Although for once putting on the stream, there were so many people watching, and there wasn't that many questions. I mean, people go on and on and on and on and on about why aren't my questions being answered? Then you give them an opportunity and they don't fucking answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know the major.
We're still streaming right now, so no leaks, please.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, if I ask my clan guys about what questions they would like to ask, then it's usually like, oh, when's this getting fixed? When's that getting fixed? And like, guys, look at the 0.20 patch notes.
Yeah.
It's all there.
Alright, you two, I need to get back to my Discord channel. I imagine there's some people waiting for me. Take care.
Sure thing. Take care, later.
Disconnected.
Alright, sit back. Spitfire's meme team. Alright, everyone. We've got 20 minutes. Any vehicle you want me to play, I'll play it. We're going back to the same thing, PvE or PvP. Do it. Say what you want, and I'm going to get myself a glass of water. Yeah. To be honest, Hellspiker, you should ask those questions, like, when they come. Like, don't hold back. Ask them. Okay. I guess that's it for people asking what things to do. I'll try. The Getmobile. Apparently this is quite good now. How is the sound quality, guys? Joseph, I'm going to try and get the whole thing back up. It's going to be 5 or 10 minutes late into the thing, but overall you should be able to view what was up. Okay, I now need to return the sound back to everything. Go. Let's jump into one again. Okay, you need to go drop down to there. Thunderbolt 2, yeah, sure, I'll play Thunderbolt. Might need to upgrade it and everything because at the moment the Thunderbolt 2 has pretty amusing armor in which that it is overperforming in terms of side armor. Smooth wide. Do a quick draw. Give Borkzilla one. Borkyzilla. Zillabork. Hey, is tier 6 the highest you have?
Me? No, I got 8.
Oh, cool.
Let me turn down my volume there.
Yeah, it was quite a good session. I just feel get into a tier 8. I just feel that people should have asked questions more. Like, this is some of most like the only times people get to ask their questions so directly instead of waiting the customary 1 or 2 weeks for anything to happen. Bork, you need to get into a tier 8 so we can play.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I had it.
Did you
We
bork
are.
out?
I'm borked out.
Let's do you. What goes this one? Do you play the dragon? The reason why the dragon kills people, Hell Spiker, is because it has a very nasty gun. The thing is very powerful. Its downsides is that it's a rear-mounted turret and it has awful gun depression.